Hey, this is Scott. I want to possibly do a playlist on NLP and text analytics. And so I'm going to do this short video starting from the very basics. I'm going to cover vocabulary, lexicon, taxonomies, and ontologies. And then if there's positive response, then I can break out and do some more advanced stuff in NLP and text analytics, maybe some visualization, maybe some Python or R coding. So anyway, let's just start with the very basics. So what I want to do here is talk about vocabulary and then how that fits into lexicon, and then get into taxonomies and then ontologies. This will be a short video. But everybody's somewhat familiar with vocabulary. I'm just going to describe things the way that I see it. So in my mind, vocabulary is just really a set of building blocks, right, for communication. The goal is to communicate, and you create, you have these building blocks, these Lego blocks or whatever, words. And then with rules and everything, you put that together and you can communicate. So reason for communication, obviously, is to share concepts and ideas, thoughts, purpose, intent. And so, and then we have to have some sort of common language that we speak. So this vocabulary is a common set of building blocks or words. And obviously there are different languages: English, Spanish, French, German, etc. They have their own word sets that combine together to form language. And putting these concepts together, then we can communicate. So what is a lexicon? A lexicon is it's a very specific subset of vocabulary or language. And so it's intended for a very specific group purpose. So the best way to state it is to just start with some examples. Engineers have their own lexicon. They have a set of terms that when they speak together, they understand each other, but people outside of their industry or their specialty, they really wouldn't understand that. And vice versa, lawyers have their own lexicon. So it's a subset of vocabulary for a specific purpose. And then, obviously mathematicians, clinicians, etc., pretty much any industry or specialty kind of has their own set of lexicon. But it doesn't have to be just work and industry. It could even be, religion or culture or whatever. Different parts of the culture have their own lexicon. And then a taxonomy. The way they started in biology, right, by this guy named Carl Linnaeus. And he was observing different animals. I mean, everybody could kind of see that there were similarities between certain animal types, things that had feathers, things that had claws, things that had scales, things that went along the ground, things that lived in trees, etc. But he was the first one to really say, I can classify this. I can create a structure that explains different animal groups. And then he fit that into a hierarchy. So at the very high level, he set up, kingdom on the far right. So he set this thing up called kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. So the kingdom was the highest level. When he started out, there were just two kingdoms. One's for plants, one's for animals. And then as you go down the tree, then there is more and more subdivision. So chordata is something that has a vertebrate in it. Aves is the largest class for birds. And then you break out the different birds into specialty, right? Some birds have feathers, some birds don't. Some are hunt prey, some eat seeds, etc. So you break out that taxonomy into very specific areas, and that's kind of the way you get it. Industry can have its own classification system, its own taxonomy. On the lower right is an example of that, where you have civil engineering, you have mechanical engineering, you have electrical engineering, chemical energy engineering, and all the different types of engineering, and that can create its own taxonomy. So that's a taxonomy. And then you have this concept called ontologies, which is a little more complicated, there are more nuances to it. Essentially, Aristotle was the person that came up with this. The Greek ontologia, which is the study of being. So it's basically an ontology is a way of representing knowledge in a structured way, so that can be used to reason objects and concepts along a particular domain. So, we talk a lot about AI and artificial intelligence. So it has its own ontologies. The semantic web is a set of ontologies. Software engineering has its own set of ontologies, etc. And so it's a way to group and represent complex concepts and everything together. One example here is in medicine, right? So you have this idea of diseases, and diseases cause symptoms, and so a symptom is a it's when it's present, it can denote a disease is present. And then in medicine, you typically make a diagnosis based on the symptoms, and then based upon that diagnosis of the disease, then you formulate a treatment. So these are all grouped together. So one way to look at it is an ontology is merely a collection of taxonomies. And so one example in medicine is this whole thing called ICD-9, and it's now ICD-10. It's an international classification that medical providers use to classify groups and existence of diseases. And so it's used by doctors and researchers. So anyway, I will stop there. If you want to see more, then leave a comment, and I'll create a playlist specifically to text analytics. Thanks. See you next time. Bye-bye.